Alright, so we're going to start. You want to grab a small size bowl, and we're going to grab a 1 cup measuring cup, and we're going to get our 1 cup of warm water. You don't want it too hot or it'll kill the yeast. And you could test it by like using the inside of your wrist. If it feels warm but not like scalding hot, you'll know it's good. Alright, so we're going to throw our 1 cup water in that bowl. And then this is kind of yeast I use. I think it's dry active yeast. Alright, we're going to take 2 teaspoons of yeast, and I don't really level them off. I just scoop in and sprinkle it around the top. I don't do precise measurements sometimes. Alright, so we got our 2 teaspoons on there, and now I've already pre-measured it out, but I got 1 tablespoon of white sugar. Sugar helps activate the yeast, so then I just sprinkle that on top. It doesn't have to be very precise. And then we're going to let that set for about, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes till it gets kind of frothy looking. So we'll just set that back there. Now we're going to take 1 cup of milk. I'm going to heat it in the microwave till it gets warm like we had the water. So not hot, but just a nice warm water, or warm milk. Probably about a minute. We're going to let that heat up, and we're going to move over to my other counter and start part 2. Alright, part 2. Alright, in our large mixing bowl, 1/2 cup of white sugar. And we're going to just throw that in there. Alright, then we're going to take our flour, just white all-purpose flour. 1 cup measuring cup. We're just going to start with putting 2 cups of flour in there with that sugar. And I still have that yeast over there getting frothy, and my milk is heated up. Alright, and then I've measured out 2 teaspoons of salt. And we're going to toss that in there. And then we're just going to whisk that together, make sure it's all kind of incorporated. Let me go check my milk, and we'll be back for part 3. Alright, we're back for part 3. So I brought over my yeast mixture, and it sat for probably about 10 minutes, getting a little frothy. I mean, it doesn't get too crazy frothy, but if you let it sit for 10 minutes, it's good. And then I got my milk, and I tested it. I washed my hands, and it feels good. A minute makes it pretty warm, but if you let it set while you're waiting for your yeast, it'll be fine. Alright, so now we're going to add our milk to this flour, salt, and sugar mixture we had. Alright. And then we're going to add our yeast and water sugar mixture. Make sure it's all scraped out. Alright, and now I have pre-measured a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. And we're just going to pour that in there. So 1/4 cup vegetable oil. Alright, so we're going to mix that all together. And that's kind of a sloppy, slurry mess. But make sure that gets all incorporated. Got that kind of a floury slurry going on with all our liquids and a little bit of flour. Now we're going to add our 1/3 cup. We're going to try to do a total of 5 cups of flour, but we do 1 cup at a time to get it all incorporated good. So add our 1/3 cup, and eventually it's going to get to the point where we're going to have to dump it out on the counter and start kneading it in. Alright, we are back for part 5. I now have 5 cups of flour in there that I've mixed in, and you can see it's starting to form a dough ball. So now I'm going to take and sprinkle some flour on my counter. Spread that out. And we're going to scrape that dough out into the, or just let it fall out onto the counter. Alright. Now comes the fun kneading part. You're probably gonna have to flour your hands a little bit. Just kind of squish it into a ball. And if it starts sticking to your hands really bad, you're gonna want to add a little more flour. I'll kind of show you how to do this. I just kind of fold and press and fold and press. But you'll see it's starting to get a little sticky and sticking to my hands. So we're gonna throw down a little more flour on the counter. This is a messy process. Fold and press. You want the dough to, at the end, to be a little sticky, but not like super sticky, like where it gobs up on your hands. But you don't want it too dry on the outside either. So you're just gonna keep doing this. It's a good workout. Oh, see, it's kind of getting sticky again, where it's kind of sticking to my hands and the counter a little bit. So I throw more flour out there. And sometimes you gotta roll the excess dough off your hands. It's getting there. You know, pretty soft dough. You don't want it too stiff, because then it'll make your bread kind of a more dense bread. It's getting there. We're about good to go on this dough, but I'm gonna just show you a little bit how it looks and then how I knead it. So yeah, I added about one more small handful of flour on the counter since part 5, and now we got it to about the consistency I want it. It's not dry on the outside, but it doesn't like pull away and stick to your hands. It's just kind of elasticy, but it holds it together in a nice ball. So anyways, I'm gonna show you slow-mo kneading because Maddie said I was going way too fast when I was kneading it. So anyways, I kind of do with palms of my hands. I'll push down and then I'll fold it over. Push down, fold it over. So kind of flip it sometimes, push down. Is that slow enough, Maddie?
Yeah.
So anyways, just keep pushing and folding. Now once you get to the right consistency of dough, you're gonna wanna knead it for about probably 4 or 5 minutes, because you wanna get a lot of air pockets in there. And I got my dough all kneaded. It should be nice and smooth and like moist to the touch, but not sticky, and it's looking good. All right, so now I did this behind the scenes. I took my large mixing bowl I was using, kind of scraped it out, any excess. There's still a little flour in there, but it's fine. Then I'm gonna take my spray and coat it really good with spray. Kind of rub it around in there. And then take your dough ball, kind of make sure it's shaped in a nice little ball there. Throw it in there. And we're gonna spray the dough really good. You wanna keep it moist. Now, I have a lid for my bowl. I'm gonna flip it over and spray the other side too. But if you don't have a lid for your bowl, you want something to be on there airtight. Mine's just a nice lid that fits on tightly. But if you don't have that, just take saran wrap and spray the saran wrap good, or you can just spray your dough really good and put saran wrap over the top, but make sure there's no holes so that the air doesn't get to it. Now the next step takes about an hour, so I'll tell you what I'm gonna do and then we'll cut out for the hour. First I go turn my oven on preheat for like to 350. I let it sit for 1 minute just to barely warm the oven, and then I turn it off. And then I put my dough ball in its bowl in the oven, in the warm oven. Make sure it's turned off because you don't want to get it hot. And then I let it rise for an hour. So we'll do that and then we'll come back for part 8. All right, it's been an hour and we're back for part 8. So we're gonna take a peek at our dough. And as you can see, it blew up, got like double in size and nice and puffy. So we're gonna dump that out on our counter. And because you sprayed it, it shouldn't be too sticky on the counter. And you can also, if you don't have spray, you can put a little oil on it too. That works too. So you just kind of punch it down. I just kind of pinch it in half. Looks like a pair of lungs. Something. Anyways, just kind of guesstimate half. I don't know. Mine are never too perfect. And if you get a little too much on one side, pinch some off, put on the other. Just try to get them somewhat even in size. Alright, we're gonna put this one back in the bowl. Alright, so now we're gonna take our first chunk, kind of squish it out into a, not super flat, but just kind of squish it out. And then we're gonna tightly roll it up. And you don't want to leave too much air pockets, so make sure it's nice. You can always squish it down too, and then we're gonna just kind of squish it into a loaf. And mine never look too perfect. They bake up nice and fluffy, and they look good. All right, so that looks good. Now I have greased 2 8x4-inch loaf pans. You could spray butter, oil, whatever you want to do. So we're gonna plop that first one in there, seam side down, wherever my seam is. Alright, so there's one. Let's put that over there for a minute. We're gonna do the same thing with the second one. Alright, now that we got our loaves in there, we're gonna spray them really good so they don't stick, and just kind of rub it around, make sure the edges are sprayed good. Do that with both of them. Kind of slippery when you do that. Spray is running low. Alright, now we're going to take saran wrap, and you're just going to loosely put a piece over. You don't have to make, you don't want any holes for air to come out, but we're going to just put a nice sheet of saran wrap over there. Do that with both of those. And then we're gonna do that same little oven warming up trick we did before. Set it to 350 and let it sit for about a minute just to get it kind of warmed up, and then turn it off. And then we're going to put the loaf pans in just like this with the saran wrap on them and let them rise for about another hour. So I'm gonna go do that, and then we'll be back in a little while. Our bread dough's been raising in our loaf pans for probably about an hour and 15 minutes. Just depends on heat and all that stuff. Anyways, so you can see it's nice and fluffy. It's like right above the edge. You don't want it hanging over the pan because then it tends to flop. So anyways, we got it nice and fluffy. I have my oven preheated to 350. You want to make sure it's hot and ready to put the bread in. And then we're just gonna, because we sprayed the bread, the saran wrap just gently pulls off. And then we're gonna pop it in the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. And then we'll be back to show the finished product. So our bread is done, nice and golden brown and puffy. We're just gonna, I have a towel laying out here on the counter. We're gonna dump them out on, ooh, that's hot. And then we're just gonna cover them and let them sit there and cool completely. And then you can store them in a bag or wrap them in saran wrap, or just eat and enjoy. So there you go. If you have any questions, you can call or text me. And yeah, hope you have fun making bread.